Welcome back to the Foundry. In keeping with the theme of what I'm calling mini projects, let's see, we've already saved an air compressor, a lawnmower, and that right there has saved me over $3,000 already. I thought we'd try and fix another item that I've been suffering without for a long time, a pressure washer. Now I own a whole slew of these things in all different shapes, sizes, configurations, but the one thing they all have in common is none of them work. First, I thought I'd take a loose inventory of what I've got, and then we'll select one to dig out and try to get going. Now, you guys might find this humorous. I don't particularly find it funny, but let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, in my defense, most of these were in a state of disrepair when I got them. But there were a couple that I've been using for years, and they finally just bit the green weenie. And so I've been going without for several months. So I'm going to kind of scope on them a little bit and see which ones we're most likely to get going in a pretty reasonable amount of time. This is the one I settled on to try first. It wasn't easy. It wasn't the easiest one to access, but I can't make it too easy on myself, or it would be such a new experience. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably lock up and not be able to finish the project. So it's going to be a challenge, but it's the reason I selected this one is because there is a slight possibility I can get this thing going today, and I won't have a lot of downtime, waiting on parts and whatnot. So I actually have never used this. Somebody gave this thing to me, I think about 16 years ago, and I just never did anything with it. Now, this is a cold water pressure washer. Now, it's summertime, so that'll do me just fine for a few things that I need it for, keeping trucks clean and equipment and things like that. The story I got was they were using it until they didn't, and they just let it set out in the yard. So actually found the wand sitting right there next to it. That's a miracle. The hose, I do believe, is garbage, so I'll discard the hose. And let me turn this thing to where I can get to the vitals, and then we'll take a good assessment of it. First things first, I want to see if the engine is locked up. Not locked up. Really doesn't feel too bad. Fuel line has got cracks all in it, so that's total junk. Will have to be replaced. See what the fuel tank looks like. Smell a lot of varnish. It's empty, and you can't see all of the tank from right here, but it appears to be somewhat clean. I'm going to go ahead and get this hose off of it so we're not fighting with it. Significant rust and corrosion here. That's never a good sign. I believe that thing should just come on out of there. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we're oxidized pretty good. Yeah, the inlet was left open to the elements and the dirt daubers. So hopefully the daubers haven't gotten up in there too far. So what is this thing? It's a Craftsman 2100 PSI, 2 gallon a minute, 5 horse. Probably a Briggs & Stratton if I had to guess. Quantum Gold 5.0. Yeah, Briggs & Stratton. Quick start, pump technology. I don't see a primer bulb, so I'm not sure what pump. Maybe they're referring to that pump. Not sure what that has to do with the start, but I don't know. I'm not a pressure washer mechanic, nor do I want to be one. It just kind of fell in my lap. It's like either go buy a brand new one for several $100s, or just kind of work with what I got and see if I can salvage something here like I did in the past. It's got plenty of oil in it according to the dipstick. Needs to be changed, but I don't see any water in it. The level's not up real high, like the crankcase is full of water. So that's a good sign, because this thing sat out in the weather for a long time now. It's been sitting in my building for about 10 years, but 6 years previous to that was out in the weather. So let's check and see. The choke moves. Ooh, it's a little stiff. Throttle moves. All of this could stand some lubrication. Yeah, I mean, I'll be surprised if that carburetor's any good. I thought what I'd try to do is pull the carburetor, go through it meticulously, see if I can clean it, replace the fuel line, get some fresh gas in it, probably a new spark plug, or clean this one. I mean, honestly, it needs to be replaced, but I don't know if I have one that size. I might. I'll have to look. One thing I don't like is the head has got some oil on it. Looks like it's been leaking a little bit. That could be a gasket or a sign of something more sinister. Won't know until probably I get it running, if we get it running. I'm trying not to force all this junk up into the pump. That could be a major party foul. I just shined the light up in there and we are totally clear on this passage here. Now you might be wondering, why am I even messing with cleaning the pump before we even know if this stupid thing even runs? And the reason for that is you're not supposed to run those pumps dry, so there's no way to divorce that pump from the engine. So while I'm working on the engine and possibly running the engine, I don't want to run that pump dry, so I'm going to hook a water hose to it while I'm starting the engine. Wow, that's the cleanest old junky carburetor I've ever opened up on a small engine. This has got to be before ethanol fuel. Gotta be. This gives me hope, gentlemen. This gives me hope. I think we can work with this. I think we can work with it. I got discouraged, and I got discouraged in the beginning when I just saw the choke butterfly, and so, you know, I mean, it's a cute little thing, but it just looks awful, just demonic, kind of like some girls I know. But I got discouraged because I saw this, how nasty and varnished that was. And with the smell coming out of the fuel tank, I'm thinking, man, this thing is not going to be salvageable. Probably going to have to order a cheap knockoff off eBay or somewhere, and it'll run half-witted. But this is actually in really good shape. So I'm going to run some of this through it. I use brake parts cleaner for carburetor cleaner because it's non-chlorinated, so it actually evaporates. Like most carburetor cleaners now, they leave behind this film and it doesn't dry. It's disgusting. But yeah, I think I can work with this. Let's see what we can come up with. All right, we got a clean carburetor. I got it installed. I went ahead and lubricated the throttle linkage and the choke linkage, and it's operating a lot smoother. So next I'm gonna, well, you can see the nice little patina I put on this bowl a while ago when I was hammering on it like an idiot. I did notice there's remnants of an old gas intake gasket on this carburetor, and it didn't come off. I didn't do that. It was like that previously, apparently, because there's not any remnant of it on the back of the air filter housing. So I'm not sure what that's all about. I'm sure someone has gotten into this thing before. It's a pretty old unit. I'm going to clean this up and we're just going to roll with it. I'll tighten it down pretty good, try to minimize any air leak. Hopefully that's not the reason they quit using it, because it was sucking air through there. But we're going to find out, because I'm fixing to put this thing back together. Air filter needs to be replaced, but I'm not spending a dime on this thing until I know that it works. So yeah, we're just going to put it back together. I am going to put a fuel filter on it if I have one laying around, because I don't know what could be in this tank. And we're going to see if this thing works. I just put water to it, and what I noticed right off the bat, as you can see, we've got water coming out of the weep holes on this pump. And something tells me that's not a good sign. Generally, if a pump has a weep hole that's got water or fluid coming out of it, it means your seals are bad, or something even more sinister perhaps. We're going to give all this a shot. I want to see if the engine runs. If it does, I want to see if it puts up pressure. And if it does, then I may just use it like this. If it doesn't put up pressure but it runs good, I might look at replacing that pump. I don't think there's an on button anywhere. She started surprisingly easy and ran really good. It just totally shocks me. But anyway, the throttle's very responsive. Cranked it on choke, shut it off, started running great, throttled it up. But I'm not getting any water out of the pump, and obviously no pressure. So I don't know if the pump is shot or if I haven't still have an obstruction in the inlet. So before I went to pulling that pump off, I decided to do a quick test to see if we had an obstruction. So I took off the hose that went to the wand. So it seems my hose is clear. I've pretty much tracked the obstruction down to my wand. And I put water in here, pulled the trigger. I can't get anything to come out of it. So that leaves us with this old thing, and who wants to stick their hand in that? I'm pretty sure it's a wolf spider web, and he's probably hiding up in there. All right, so the good news is I was able to manipulate the trigger, and the pump was putting up pressure. I never could get it to come out of the wand, because I believe my unloader valve right here has more than likely got trash in it. Due to the obstructions that I found in the pump. And so that should be a fairly easy fix if that's all that it is. All right, so this is our valve here. It's not stuck. See if that hole appears to be clean. Well, unfortunately, the unloader valve didn't solve my issue. So being how it's weeping out of all the ports, I think this pump is on its way out. I'm going to go ahead and pull it, and there are some numbers stamped in it. I'm going to see if I can either order a new pump, or maybe there's rebuild kits for them. I'm not exactly sure. Looks pretty simple, so I should be able to either put a new pump on it or fix this one. However, in the meantime, you're not going to believe this. Number 11. I kid you not. While I'm sitting here on my phone trying to find a pump for this thing, a buddy of mine texts me out of the blue, sends me a picture of this one. He said, "Hey man, you want a pressure washer?" He said, "I don't know anything about it, but it's been in my garage for years." So I thought, you know what? I'm in it this far, I might as well have 11. And if I keep trying, I might end up with an even dozen. But I was looking at this thing. It's a Troy built Honda engine. I don't see a horsepower rating unless it's written somewhere I'm not seeing, or a PSI rating. However, Briggs & Stratton Corporation Troy built, but it's got a Honda engine in it. That's interesting. However, it really looks pretty decent. So I think the play for now, while I'm waiting on parts for that one, I am going to fix this one. And the reason why, it looks awful, pump's bad. You would think, you know, I'm just going to throw it in the scrap pile. But I tell you what, I'm so super impressed with how well this engine runs. It's just smooth as silk. I can't throw it away. So I'm going to put a new pump on this one, clean it up, might even go down and get me a new hose for it. And I think this one will be a good one to have around. I need at least 2 of these small residential type units, one for up front up here and one for out back under the awning to wash trucks and things like that. So I'm definitely going to have at least 2 of them. I've got 3 now. I'm going to fix that other one over there as well. And I'll probably end up giving my buddy back one that, you know, since he gave me this one. I don't know. We're going to see how it all pans out. But right now we're going to shift focus from the Craftsman onto the Troy built. It has an actual on-off switch. Now, I don't know if I like that or not. I would assume this kills the ignition unless there's a fuel shutoff solenoid. I don't see a shutoff solenoid. The reason I don't like the ignition types, it's just one more thing to go wrong. Those others I got, it's just you operate the carburetor to turn it on and off. It does have a fuel shutoff valve. As you know, if you watched that video when I was working on the lawnmower, I really like having those. You're not going to be able to see down in there, but let me give it the old smell test. That actually doesn't smell too bad. That's amazing. I can see that it's very clean in the tank. The tank's bone dry. So they either ran it out of fuel or it just evaporated from sitting up, because it looks like it's been sitting up a long time. It's seen the sunlight. Air filter. Doing this one-handed. Ooh, air filter looks good. That's a bonus. And the carburetor looks very clean as far as the choke butterfly. Where is the choke linkage? Here it is. So it looks like you can turn the choke on and off. So to start it, I assume you put it on, choke it. Oh, I guess that's choke there. Where is the throttle control? Does it even have a throttle control? Here's the governor. I'm not seeing a throttle control, so it may just run at one speed. That doesn't necessarily hurt my feelings any. I mean, you pretty much have to be running it wide open when you're pressure washing anyway. Very seldom would I idle my pressure washer. See what kind of oil we're dealing with here. Oil is nice and black. Doesn't smell like gasoline. It's got plenty of oil in it. Let's definitely do an oil change. Spark plug's not super rusty like them others, so somebody may have serviced this thing at one point in time, being how it's got a clean air filter, and spark plug externally looks okay. Of course, it could look like an unmitigated disaster when I pull it out of there, but honestly, it looks clean enough. The carburetor looks clean enough from looking in from the outside. Who knows what's in the bowl? I'm tempted to just put gas in this thing and see if it works. It wouldn't be too hard to... I can't see... It may not be too hard to pull that bowl, or at least pull the screw out and make sure there's no water in there. I may do that before I put gas in it. But the ports here look fairly clean. There's no gasket, of course. That's the first thing that gets lost. I need to get a handful of them things. So I don't have any reservations about hooking water to it. another feature it has that I really like, in addition to the shutoff valve, it's actually got a little soap tank, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I think I'm going to put some gas in it and just see if the thing works. Gave her a snort of starting fluid, and it did start and run immediately, but it won't run on its own, so we definitely have a fuel problem. I guess the carburetor stopped up. For the little bit that I had it running, I immediately noticed a really strong odor of really bad ethanol gasoline. Now you can just figure, anytime a corrupt politician or a farm block lobbyist, anytime their mouth is moving, I don't care if it's in their sleep, they are lying to you. That is a fact, and it's provable. This ethanol scam was perpetrated on the public for one reason and one reason only, and that is to enrich the ones who imposed it at your expense. So you can think about that every time you go to get gas. Not only that, it's so much less environmentally friendly. So you know that wasn't at the core of it. They lied, obviously. But it's less fuel efficient. It is the death knell of any engine you put it in. If that engine's going to be sitting around for a few months at a time, forget it. You'll be doing this. Back at the bench, I looked through that choke port, and it was pretty varnished in there. It didn't look just too awful, but you could definitely see a little varnish on it. So I'm operating under the assumption that this carburetor is going to be impossible to get apart, apparently. Yeah, that gas that's coming out of the carburetor, the fresh gas has gone in and washed up some of that varnish, and it's just yellow as bear piss coming out of there. Try not to break the bowl gasket. It does appear to be a gasket as opposed to an O-ring. I don't like that, but I may be able to get it off in one piece. Nope, it broke. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Yeah, so everything in there is kind of yellowish. There's some funk down in the main jet, so it definitely needs a good cleaning. I'm going to get started on that now, and then we'll get it stuck back on there, and we'll try this whole exercise again. All right, boys, one down. Thought I would share a little bit about the features I like and dislike about this unit. This fuel valve saved us a lot of hassle for things just like we just did, getting into the carburetor. So I got a fuel valve to put on that Craftsman. I did notice on these lines, you see these little curly Q clamps? Those are vile and disgusting and should be discarded whenever possible. They're inferior. The Craftsman with the Briggs & Stratton had these types of clamps, and these are the way to go. So that's a ding against Honda or Troy Built, whoever put them on there. Also, the Craftsman with the Briggs & Stratton was a lot easier to work on, to get the carburetor off and go through. This was a little more, the way it's designed, the way it's mounted was just a little bit more of a hassle. But apart from that, the thing seems to put up good pressure and work good. It is quite a load on that engine when it's pressured up, and I don't know what horsepower or cubic centimeter that engine even is, but it seems like it's got quite a load on it. But it does the job. Another design flaw, in my opinion, is this sheet metal. This is not a plastic cover. That's actually sheet metal that's part of the structure of the unit. And there's no bar under here. That's why it's so noisy when you move it around on concrete, because all that is sheet metal dragging around with this heavy little engine on it, dragging around on the concrete. And on a pressure washer, all sheet metal is good for is rusting out. So I would prefer this be gone and just have a bar across there like the other one has. Plus it makes it easier when because with a pressure washer, you're always moving these around, you're hauling them in the back of your truck. So when you have to pick this thing up, you've got sharp, jagged sheet metal wherever you grab it. It's the only place to grab it in the front. So I don't care for that. Now for this wand, at first I was thoroughly disgusted with this safety feature. I don't like safety equipment. I don't like safety features on my equipment. So what you have to do is push. See, I'm pushing that button in with my thumb. You got to do that before you can hit the trigger. But what I learned is while you're using it, you can relax the trigger until the flow shuts off. But see, that button is still pushed in, so you can immediately go right back like so. And then when you release it all the way is when it locks. I still don't think it's necessary to have that, but now that I know that there's a way to do it with one hand, you know, I can live with that. I do like the fact that it's got the quick connect on the end for the adjustable nozzles, which reminds me, let me show you this. I went to Atwood's to pick up an assortment of filter screens and rubber gaskets, since all 11, my now 11 fleet of pressure washers is missing all that. But while I was there, I saw they had assortment of tips, so I picked up a group of these. So now we'll have all sorts of different spray patterns, which should be pretty cool. So yeah, we got one good working unit here, and I'm ordering the parts to fix the Craftsman, and we'll pick back up when they come in. All right, 3 bolts, and it just hit the tailgate. So thinking this engine ought to just lift up. Shaft. I'm going to set this back there for the time being. And here's our pump. All right, we're finally back on our little pressure washer project. Now I searched high and low for a pump that matched the dimensions and output of the pump that was on the unit originally. What I discovered is it's no longer in production, so I had to find something that was close. What I ended up going with was, however you say that, selected this brand because they had a good price, and this is the brand of electric motor we used on the air compressor project. If you haven't seen that, go check out that video. So here's our pump. It obviously looks different than the original, but the mounting locations are the same, the shaft diameter is the same, and the only difference is the output. And it's a little bit concerning because depending on what vendor you search through when you get this pump, one vendor said it was good from 5 horsepower to 7, another one said it was from 6 or 6.5 to 7. Well, our little unit here is 5 horsepower, but this is the closest thing I could find for the 5 horsepower engine, so I'm just going to have to give it a shot. Now the output is only about a ½ gallon more in flow. However, it's somewhere around 1,000 psi more on the pressure side. That's a little concerning. I don't know if our little engine's going to push this pump, but we're going to find out. All right, the new pump went on the same way the old one came off, so I spared you all that nonsense. But ran into a little issue. There's an interference here between the bottom case of the engine and these ears that are the mounts. And so I basically just got some longer bolts and used some flat washers as spacers to make sure it's all even. It seems to be up on that shaft the exact distance that the other pump was, so I think I've got plenty of contact surface in there to drive the pump. The only real drawback of the deal is under here. That is the oil drain plug, and it is directly above the mount. So I cannot change the oil with the pump attached. So I went ahead and changed the oil before I mounted the new pump. I get pretty good life out of oil on pressure washers. They're generally not used, or mine aren't, in a dusty environment. The oil stays clean a long time. Went ahead, changed the oil, also put a new air filter in it. And now I'm fixing to hook it up to the water, and we're gonna see if this little engine will actually push that pump. All right, it seems changing out the wand and hose did the trick. I believe my other wand, I looked at the end of it, I believe the tip on it is totally worn out. It's like you could throw a weenie down a hallway with that thing. So also, you'll notice there is no dripping anywhere off of this pump. Puts up good pressure. It's a decent load on the engine, but I'd say no more than the load that was on that washer that we just fixed and used. I'm going to call it good. I'm going to use it. All right. I don't really believe this just happened, but this unit here has been sitting in the warehouse for at least 2 or 3 years with ethanol gas in it at that. And the reason I quit using it is because it began making a horrendous, abusive, loud knocking noise. And I assumed the pump had gone bad. It didn't really feel like there was anything loose in the engine, like a rod, when I would pull the cord. So I just assumed it needed a pump. So I took it out of service, and I was going to get another pump just exactly like that one and try to put on this thing. So I got it up there on my tailgate workbench to remove that pump, and I discovered it's got a totally different type of setup in it, pump-wise. It appears, man, I gotta shut the water off. Now that the water's off, it appears it has some type of 2-stage pump. This hose just deadheads. I have no idea why that's even on here. But the 2 pumps are driven off a cam. If I had a wrench, I'd turn that. But this plate right here, I don't even know if you can see it. This plate right here, it basically seesaws back and forth, and it drives, assumably, both of those stages. I'm not sure, but in any case, what I discovered is there's a coupler up in there, and the set screw had backed out on the coupler. So as the engine turned, as the crankshaft turned, there was a lot of slack between the pump and that crankshaft. So I thought, before I tear this whole thing down, why don't we just try something? I tightened up the set screw. I brought it out here. It had a lot of oxidation in the pump, so I hooked up the water to it and just unhooked this hose, just let it blow out, clean itself out. And then I thought, there's really no chance this thing's going to start after having sat for 2 or 3 years with ethanol gas in it. But, let's give it a shot. I've already got a fuel shutoff valve on this one, like everyone should have. So worst case, if I have to pull the carburetor, I'm not going to lose all my fuel that I just put in there. So I put some fresh gas in this thing, and it fired up first pull. Not only that, there was no knocking sound, and it put up pressure. So that's all it was. It was the coupler had come loose, and hopefully it's not damaged to the extent that it'll just come loose again. I've washed with it, 15-20 minutes, and it's doing great. So yeah, there's number 3 fixed. All right, so I started out with what was believed to be 3 piles of junk, and now I have 3 good cold water pressure washers. Now these are what I would consider fairly low pressure, around the 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000 PSI units. I do have a cold water 6,000 PSI unit in there that'll be in another video. But I'm super happy. I saved, let's just, guesstimate that these are like $400 now if you were gonna go buy one. They could be less than that. I honestly have not looked, but I do remember I paid $200. That was a refurb. I didn't even buy it brand new. I paid $200 for that at Home Depot 20 years ago. So I think it's safe to assume that today's price would be somewhere around $400. Fact check me in the comments, but if that's the case, I have just saved $1,200 versus buying new pressure washers. So I've exceeded my goal with this video. I didn't actually intend to fix more than one of them, but it worked out really well because I need one up front for washing trucks up here. I also need one around over under the awning on the yard so I can wash trucks and equipment out there as well. Now I have 2 good units for that. Ended up with the 3rd one that my buddy brought over, and I'll probably end up just giving him that one back because I won't need it as long as mine hang in there. I'm gonna use all 3 of them for a while, make sure they're reliable, and then just kind of go from there. So a quick recap on our little mini project series. We started out with the air compressor. We put a new electric motor on that, and that saved us approximately $1,200 over buying a whole new compressor, which wasn't out of the question. I was prepared to do that because that compressor was 17 years old, and I thought, man, there's no way I'm gonna be able to rescue this thing. But we did. The motor cost 150 bucks, so we saved quite a bit of money there. Next, we moved on to the lawnmower. A new lawnmower of the configuration that I wanted was gonna cost me about $2,300. I took an old mower that somebody gave to me, much like the pressure washer, fixed it for 100, 150 bucks, and now that saved me a significant amount of money. On to the pressure washers. We saved somewhere in the ballpark of about $1,200. So it's really just something to keep in mind if you've got some old, what you consider to be junky equipment around. If it's not too far gone and you have a little bit of time to invest in fixing it, you can come out ahead. It is possible. All right, I'm gonna wrap this one up. I've got trucks to wash, and now I can do that. And when it comes to power washers, I'm spoiled for choice. So you guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one. I guess somebody absconded with my wand and hose. I literally just had it. How could I have misplaced it that fast? Did I discard it in a fit of rage? I don't remember doing that. Maybe I got so pissed, I just blacked out.